All right, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode. Before I begin today, I just want to thank the new listeners. We've got a bunch more new listeners since the last episode. You guys have really been sharing this thing, it's been spreading. It's been really cool to see, and I hope to get as many people as we can because I want to share the message and again, try to help as many people out as I possibly can who are struggling with social anxiety. And today, I want to talk specifically about self consciousness. We all know about self consciousness. This is one of the big problems with social anxiety. And I want to talk about specifically how do we overcome it? What steps do we take? What do we do when we're in a social situation and we can't stop thinking about ourselves? And I've made a video before about self consciousness, though it was a little brief and it was more of an abstract episode. And I want to get more into the nitty gritty about things you can do when you're feeling self conscious. Okay. The first thing I want to try to get across here, though, is before we get into the details of the specifics of practical things you can do, is we have to understand a bit of why we are self-conscious. Now, there's a lot of reasons, obviously. Everybody has their own reasons why they're self-conscious, and they have their own things about them they're self-conscious. But in a social setting in particular, I think there are two main reasons we're self-conscious. The first one is because we believe deep down that we are somehow flawed. We think that there is something wrong with us. We think that we have to fix something. And that feeling of needing to fix, needing to fit in, needing to be normal is what makes you partly so self conscious because you're always monitoring yourself. You're asking yourself, am I being normal? Am I being how I'm supposed to be? How am I coming across? Right. So we're always concerned about whether or not we're living up to the standard that we invented in our head. So that obviously has to be worked on, though I'm not going to talk too much about that today. I'm going to talk more about practical things that we can do in the moment. Okay. The second reason why we're self-conscious is because of those feelings and because of the fear, we are always monitoring what other people are doing, right? So we're afraid of the judgment, we're afraid of what other people are going to do. So we're not only self-conscious of ourselves, but we'll become conscious of what other people are doing. So I guess that's not self-consciousness, but we become hyper sensitive, hyper aware to the threats in the environment. And these threats are not always real threats. They can be perceived threats. And what I've mentioned in podcasts before is that this is hard to admit, but people with social anxiety tend to misinterpret neutral signs from people as negative, right? So we are more likely to assume that something that is actually neutral or maybe even positive is negative because of all these assumptions that we make about people and because of how we feel about ourselves. So before I get into all the practical stuff, the thing you have to understand, there's two main concepts here that you really have to grasp and really be on board with if you want to move to the next step. And those two things are, number one, you have to come to the realization that you do not have to fix yourself. The goal here is not to fix yourself. It is not to be better at socializing. It is not to make sure that you're doing all the right things, because that is actually what is making you self conscious. And I would argue that the self consciousness itself, that is the reason why you do quote unquote awkward things. See, we tend to believe that we are awkward, therefore we do awkward things. And so what we try to do then is we try to correct. We try to think about all the things we could be doing wrong. We try to fix them. But I want you to consider the possibility that that isn't the problem. The problem isn't that you're so weird and awkward and so therefore you do awkward things. The problem is because you are so hyper fixated on this notion of whether or not you're awkward, because of that, that is why you do awkward things, right? So the only reason you do awkward things, I think, generally speaking, the reason we do things that we can deem awkward or that other people deem awkward is because we're in our head and we're monitoring, right? We can't have a smooth conversation because we're thinking about what to say, right? We don't look at people in the eye. Maybe we stutter. Whatever the things are that we would traditionally call awkward silences, things like that. The only reason those things happen is because we're in our head and we're anxious. If you got rid of the anxiety, you wouldn't do those things, right? So this isn't a problem about who you are as a person. You may believe that, and that's something you have to work on. I'm not going to get into that too much today, but we do have to accept at least consider the possibility that this isn't a you problem. It isn't that you're so awkward and wrong and broken that you need to be fixed. It's actually just that You're too focused on the fixing. And if we stop focusing on the fixing, you would stop being anxious. Okay, so that's the first thing you have to keep in mind. I'm not saying that's going to make your anxiety go away, but when you go into social settings, I want you to consider the possibility that you're not awkward. It's only the hypervigilance and the rumination that makes you do awkward things. The second thing that you really have to grasp, and we're going to talk about this a lot in this episode, is what we call the threat detection. Okay, now what is threat detection? Threat detection is the things we are looking for, and we don't do this consciously. A lot of times we do it subconsciously, but the things that create the anxiety within us. And these can be external or internal. The external threats would be someone makes a weird face at us, right? They give us a disgruntled or a confused face, or maybe they laugh and the laugh sounded condescending, or they're not responding to you, so you assume that you're boring. Those are sort of external threats, right? You're looking out and you're watching to see what other people are doing. You're looking to see what's a threat, what do I have to worry about? And again, this goes back to the first point, is the reason you're doing that is because you want to figure out, how do I modulate myself? How do I fix myself so that this person will stop looking at me like I'm such a crazy, weird looking creature? Okay. And the other part of this is we also have a threat detection system within us. And what I mean by that is, you've probably all been there. You're constantly monitoring your own symptoms. And the reason we often do this is because we assume that because we're feeling a symptom, that's the people out there can see it, right? So if I might say to myself, I feel really anxious, therefore I must be coming across awkwardly, right? Or I'm sweating, I bet they can see it and they're judging me for that. Or my face is really red, that's so embarrassing, I better make sure that these people can't see that my face is red, right? And so when we have those feelings, we will do things to try to protect ourselves. And again, that goes into that what makes us come across awkward, right? We might cover our face, right? We might turn our body language because we don't want the person maybe to see that we're shaking or we're sweating. So there's all these things that we do. We're worried about these quote unquote threats, and we're trying to alleviate the threats by getting like ahead of them, getting on top of them. So what do you have to consider here? I want you to consider the possibility that the threats aren't important. I know that sounds crazy. I know that's really hard. But, I was talking about metacognition last time, and I brought this up in other podcasts. And metacognition, again, is just what we think about our thoughts, right? Beliefs about beliefs. And an important belief to have in this regard is we have to believe that the threats are not important and that we do not have to respond to the threats. That is not our goal. That is what is creating more anxiety. We find the threat, we look at it, and then we think, oh my God, I got to do something about this. I got to fix this. This person's looking at me weird. Let me go do something about it. Okay. Now, I know this is easier said than done. Obviously, if you're anxious, like you're not in total control of this. This is kind of just what's going on in your brain. But this is something I want you to consider before you go into a social situation. So what that means is when you go into a social situation, I want you to tell yourself, I'm going to see a lot of things today that I'm going to think are threats. Maybe they're not. I want to consider the possibility that they're not actually threats. Or here's a better way to look at it. Maybe they are threats. Maybe people are judging me, but it's not important that I respond to them. It's not important that I change my behavior because of the threat. I know that's easier said than done, but this is the mindset I want you to try to get into so we can do the next step, which is the practical stuff. So those are the two mind steps I want you to consider. Now let's get into the practical stuff. So the practical advice here, the practical method here to deal with the self-consciousness is what we call attentional training. Attentional training, basically all that means is we want to practice and train ourselves to move our attention away from the feared stimulus, away from the thing we're afraid of, to something else. Now, some of you might be saying, wait a minute, that sounds a lot like avoidance. I thought we weren't supposed to avoid. But here's the thing. We are not avoiding. We're staying in the social situation. I am not telling you to leave the social situation. All I'm asking you to do is I want you to act as if the stimulus, the feared stimulus, the threat, right? The facial expression or even the internal anxiety or the sweating, whatever. I want you to act as if it is not important. Even though you have all the worries, what if they see me sweating? Or, oh my God, this person just gave me a weird face. Does that mean they think I'm weird? When your mind is anxious, okay, it is looking for these threats and it's going to fixate on them and it's going to look at them and it's going to think to itself, oh, I got to do something about that. Let me go do something. Let me go fix. And we get hyper fixated. And when it's internal, we get self-conscious. We get hyper fixated internally. We want to change our attention. We want to switch our attention. So what that looks like is if you notice that you're talking to someone and you start to notice maybe something about the way they smile or something about the way they respond to you that makes you feel anxious, like, oh, are they judging me? Is that a judgment? You're going to be looking at their facial expressions. That's what we do. We look at facial expressions. We look at we look at body language, right? We're constantly reading people, People with social anxiety are very good at reading people because that's all they do all day, right? You're very good at reading people. I want you to take that attention and put it somewhere else. Same thing internally. You're going to start to obsess about how you feel. Oh my God, I'm sweating. Oh my God, I'm nervous. Can they see that I'm sweating? Can they see that I'm nervous? I want you to take that attention that's inward and I want it to go somewhere else that is non-threatening. Again, this is not avoidance. This is telling our brain that the things that we think are dangerous are not actually dangerous. Even if we believe that they are right now, we need to practice believing that they are not. Okay. We need to put this into practice because we can think about this all day logically, right? We can go home and say to ourselves, I know it's not actually a threat, but it feels like a threat. We can think about it, but you have to actually practice it. Now, look, if you're at a point where you're not ready, like I don't want to say ready, but maybe you don't really buy in yet. You're thinking to yourself, well, no, these are threats. Like I don't want to be isolated. I don't want people to make fun of me. I don't want people to do this. I don't want that. These are real threats. I have to monitor. I have to check. I get it. I get that that's where you're at. And if you have a history of maybe being bullied, it makes sense that you're on guard. I'm not judging you for that. But what I'm saying is that whole process, whether it's valid or not, whether you think it's valid or not, it is not going to help you. It is only going to make you more anxious. Okay. So we need to consider the possibility there's another avenue here. So we have to act as if these are not threats. We're going to refocus our attention. So what does that look like? When you're in a conversation with someone, and let's say you're in your head and you're in your head about you're in your head about your thoughts. Am I saying enough? Am I talking enough? What should I say here? What should I do here? What do I say? Oh my God, my heart is racing. I'm sweating. I'm blushing. All these things. And your mind, your focus is inward. And now you want to fix. I want you to focus on the person. I want you to focus, but not on whether or not they're judging you. And again, I know this isn't always in your control. You can't always control that. I want you to focus. What are they saying? Listen to them. Listen to what they are saying. Let your brain listen and come up with a response instead of trying to force a response, instead of trying to come up with something to say. Just practice active listening. Practice listening to the person. Okay. And let's say you're in a group setting. Instead of focusing on, am I saying enough? There's all these people in this group. Am I talking enough? Watch the group dynamic. Listen to the group. Listen for the content of what they're talking about and ask yourself, is this interesting to me? What do I think about this topic? Even if you're not ready to talk yet, okay? We are taking our attention away from the judgmental glares, the facial expressions, or the inward, and we're going outward, okay? Now you can do this in other ways. It doesn't, and here's a great exercise actually. If you're not ready to do this in a social situation, consider doing this by yourself. Doing this by yourself. Go out, because sometimes, again, if you have really bad social anxiety, just going out can be socially uncomfortable, right? You're walking down the street and you feel eyes on you, right? And then you're looking, are people looking at me? Are people looking at me? Am I dressed okay? Am I walking okay? Am I doing this okay? Assessing. If you do that, if you're someone who's really, really anxious, not even in conversations, you're someone who's really anxious just being looked at, I want you to practice switching your attention from what the thoughts are in your head and what you think other people are doing to what is going on around you. Go to the park, take a walk in the park, literally listen to the birds chirp, literally look at the trees. Smell the air that you're walking through and take notice of it. Again, this is not avoidance. This is directing attention away, because when we are anxious, we are hyper self conscious. We are too aware of ourselves. We need to become more aware of the outside world. So you can, if you're not ready to do this in a conversation, you can do this by yourself. Even if you're at home and you're ruminating and you're thinking about a scenario, you're thinking about something that should happen, change your direction, get present in the world. And I realized, like, I'm not asking you to just not think. All right. I don't believe in that stupid advice, right? You can't just like not think. I'm asking you to become aware of the fact that you're ruminating and say to yourself, I'm ruminating. Notice once you notice you're ruminating, it's much easier to get out of it, right? It's when we're in it, we don't really even realize we're in it. Hey, I'm doing that thing, I'm ruminating. My attention is inward. I think I need to fix. I think I need to change myself. Is it possible that none of that is true? Is it possible I don't need to fix anything? I just need to be out here. And see, this is again about, I talked about last time. If you want to be natural, what does natural mean? It means behaving without editing, right? Behaving without editing. That's what natural would be. You're not modulating yourself for someone else or for the environment. The only way to do that is to focus only on the outside world. You're only focused on the outside world. You're trusting that your brain and your biology and your natural personality will just merge. It will just emerge. Okay. So, other things you can do with this, even if you're with a person, let's say you're with a person and you get all these thoughts, maybe you can manually interact with the world around you, right? Let's say you're at a restaurant, read the menu, flip through the pages. And again, this is not distraction. This is not avoidance. You are focused on the menu. You're reading the menu because, we're so concerned about how do I start a conversation? How do I get a conversation started? If you actually just focus on the world and the outside world, conversations will just come to you. You won't have to think about them. You're literally, if you're reading a menu, your brain is going to go, man, they have chicken alla vodka. I love chicken alla vodka. And then you just say it out loud. And then the person goes, oh, they have chicken alla vodka. And then someone else says, oh, I hate chicken alla vodka. Chicken alla vodka is disgusting. That's how conversations happen. They don't happen by manufacturing them in your head, but because you're so self-conscious, you think, I have to think about what to say, how to say it, what should I do? Focus just on the outside world. What's going on around you? Maybe you're at a bar and you look up and there's a game on. Well, now just watch the game first. Don't even comment. Don't even think about what can I say about this game yet. Don't even think about that yet. Literally just watch the game. Watch the game. Watch the game. Something will happen. A guy hits a home run. Oh shit, he just hit a home run. Mets are up 2-0. And now the person next to you goes, oh, the Mets are up. That's a conversation. You're trying to manufacture, you're trying to go in your head and think about what to say instead of just watching things around you and letting thoughts come to you, letting things emerge. So, this is what attention training looks like. It is directing your attention away from the feared threat, because the threat is telling you this is important. And again, going back to our metacognition, what we want to think about before we go in is we want to say to ourselves, actually, it's not important. I know it feels important. It feels like I got to fix myself. It feels like I got to do something. But you know what? I'm going to try my best to not scan faces today, because again, as I mentioned before, we're not very good at it. We think we are. But the data shows, generally speaking, people who are socially anxious, we overestimate. We assume that people are doing things and making judgments that they're not actually making. Now, does that mean people are never making judgments? Of course not. But by refocusing your attention, the judgments just whiz right by you, because you're not focused on the judgment. You're focused on, what do I like on the menu, right? So let's say that's a perfect example, right? It's like you're in a social situation, there's a group of people, everyone's ordering, and then you're thinking, oh my God, what do I order? Like, are people going to judge me for what I order? Or like, how do I say it? Or like, what should I say? And when actually all you have to do is ask yourself, what do I like? What do I like? Okay, that's what I like. I'm going to say that. I'm just going to say that out to the group. And if people judge me, I'll deal with that later. I know that's easier said than done, but this is what changing your attention looks like. And again, if you're not ready to do it in a group, do it by yourself. Go to the park, go out in public, just look, engage in the world. And when your thoughts come up, you're going to say, I see you there. I see you there, but I'm not changing myself. I'm not modulating. I'm not looking for threats. I'm just going to act. I'm just going to be in the present moment. And I'm going to act as if those threats don't exist. Okay. I know that's easier said than done. You guys, you might have a lot of doubts about this. You might not really believe in the philosophy. I get it. But the reality is, what is the alternative? Because what you're doing is not working. So let's consider the possibility that some of the things that you believe about yourself and about the world are not true. Sometimes we have to challenge those things. Just because we believe it, just because we feel it, does not necessarily make it true. All right. I hope you guys found this helpful. If you have any questions or you have any topics you guys want me to cover, let me know. Send them to the email in the info of the podcast. And I will see you soon.